Hey, so this will be kind of a different video. Usually I would have a review video and all that stuff, but this time it's a compilation of some sort. Basically, this is all of my Akira videos without the intros and outros together in a video, so you guys can enjoy that. I wanted to see how well this will go with me doing all of my reviews in a compilation while removing the intros and outros to make, a reason to watch the originals. But yeah, if you want to watch this, then go ahead. I'll have some stuff that I want to talk about at the end of the video. But yeah, without any more hesitation, let us begin this mega compilation. The manga starts up with a giant explosion going off and a huge section of the country being in the red, which most likely means the explosion affected it. Then we see a biker gang, who we would later know them as our protagonist. They visit this giant hole, which was probably caused by the explosion. After talking about the Olympics being built there, they head back only to have one of their members, Tetsuo, crash their bike because of an old man who would just later on vanish in thin air. The Coast Guard comes and tells the kids that the ambulance and the police are on their way. After that, they get sent to their school for some reason and get scolded by the principal and beaten up by the gym teacher for some reason. After a little bit of banter between them, they just head home. We see two sketchy people talking to each other about meeting someone. Then it cuts to the group at the bar where they are disappointed to learn that no one knows what happened to Tetsuo. Anyways, one of the sketchy people enter the bar, which gets the boys' attention and sits next to the other sketchy guy who was already there. They talk about not being able to find someone, but their conversation is cut short by the group, who I will call Kanada's group, sorry for my pronunciation, who tries to hit on the sketchy girl. Before Kanada has a chance of hitting on the sketchy woman, the man slams Kanada's head onto the table and both of them starts to run out of the bar, only to be chased down by Kanada's group. The girl is able to escape, but the guy has one of Kanada's friends on his tail. The guy is able to escape after running through an alleyway and causing a commotion for two of the other boys. After the two other boys get back on their feet, they see the old man who caused Tetsuo's accident, and one of them recognizes him. The boys is about to beat the shit out of him. Before they can do anything to the old man, glass starts to break behind them, and the sketchy girl from before tells the boys to run away. Just as she said this, an explosion happens on the building. Honestly, I'm pretty sure this old dude has some sort of psychic powers. Sure, they might explain this soon in the manga. I'm writing this before I read the later or parts of the manga, but I just wanted to write this, but my guess is here, because there is no way this old guy isn't psychic and caused all this damage by just sheer luck. Anyways, we see a group of even shadier people talking about the explosion and mentioning who I think is the old guy. Anyways, as the fire department and police come to assess the situation, Kanada's group is hiding because they have no way of explaining themselves and they don't want to get into any more trouble again, especially after what happened earlier. Kanada realizes that the sketchy girl has something to do with the explosion and the old man, so he runs from his group to try to find the girl and chase her down. Meanwhile, the sketchy guy finds the old man and tells him that he's an ally and his group is the reason why he got freed, which is interesting to read. And as the sketchy guy is trying to calm the old man down, Kanada appears and asks him what the hell is going on. As they argue for a bit about the old man, armed guards come to try to kill all three of them. The man takes the old man with him while Kanada runs the other way. Kanada gets cornered and is almost killed, but is saved by the woman. Look, I'll use their names once they're revealed in the series. Trust me, this will be for a while. Kanada and the woman tag along to find the man and the old man. Meanwhile, the shadier group is talking about number 26. I presume this is the old man being spotted, so the boss of the group tells them to call Masura, which surprises the driver, but the boss tells them that Masura is more useful than 100 soldiers. Jeez, dude. Anyways, the man and the old man, who I will call number 26 until his name is revealed, enter a gun battle with the soldiers. The man asks 26 if he can help, but he just stands there scared. And as the guy is about to lose, Kanada and the woman comes to save them, and we finally get their names, Ryu and Kei. Kanada drives away and hits a giant truck that is parked in front of them, which explodes. All four survive, but Kei realizes that 26 is in great pain, and suddenly some orb appears, and Ryu gets ready to shoot it. Turns out that orb is Masura, and he wants to give 26 this pill. The army surrounds Kaneda, Ryu, Kei, and 26, and we learn that 26's real name is Takashi, which upsets Ryu because they thought Takashi was Akira, which surprises the leader of the army, since that name isn't public knowledge. Anyways, as they are surrounded, Kaneda does the most ballsy move, and he uses Ryu's gun to threaten and kill Takashi, which ends with Masura using his psychic powers to summon a mini tsunami to drag Kaneda away, and causes a massive shift in the train. Masura tries to give the pill to Takashi, but Kaneda snatches the pill and gets away. The boss gets pissed off that Kaneda was able to escape with the pill. Meanwhile, Kaneda is bleeding from his feet. Honestly, this pill must be really important if even the boss cares about them. I think it might be a pill that calms down Takashi's powers, but it could be something else. We will have to see. Anyways, next day, Tetsuo returns to school after being gone for a while. We see his classmates and friends goofing off in class while being scolded by the teacher. Kaneda goes off to give the drug to the school nurse and talking about how that he wants to watch her give birth, which was interesting to read. And as he gets the drugs, he is informed that Tetsuo has returned, and Kaneda's group decides to celebrate by having a party. But Tetsuo tells him that he has to return to the hospital by 7. But the group ignores it and insists that he has to tag along and go and party. Right as the group is about to hit downtown, he gets the drug from the nurse and she asks Kaneda how he got the pills, and he shrugs off, saying monster gets from other monsters. We also learn that pill is something that shouldn't be publicly available, which will be interesting to see. And as Kaneda's group exits the school on their bike, causing mayhem in town, the boss from earlier is talking about Tetsuo and may hint at Tetsuo being able to develop psychic powers. And as Kaneda is causing a lot of mayhem, Kaneda realizes that Tetsuo is gone. Kaneda follows where he saw Tetsuo go, but the police arrive and Kaneda's group try to run away from the cops. Tetsuo gets surrounded by a biker gang and is about to get captured, but Kaneda comes in and helps. Tetsuo, however, beats up one of the bike members, almost killing him, but Kaneda stops him, and this causes the two of them to have an argument. Sometime after this happened, the boss guy arrives at Kaneda's school to retrieve Tetsuo. Kaneda is trying to flirt with the nurse, but gets rejected, and as he's about to go back to class, Kaneda and the boss guy spots each other, which shocks Tetsuo since they both know each other. Kaneda jumps out of the second floor window and gets to his bike as he's getting chased by the boss guy's guards. Kaneda is officially on the run. Meanwhile, the boss guy chews out the two guards later for not being able to catch Kaneda, and after talking to the professor about Tetsuo, then we see Kaneda meeting up with Kei and some of her comrades. Her comrades say that Kaneda is not trustworthy, but Kei tells him that he's trustworthy, ending with them telling Kaneda to follow them but leave the bike outside, which pisses Kaneda off. He is brought to a secret underground lab where Ryu appears and thanks Kaneda for helping him earlier. Then he asks Kaneda where the pills are, and Kaneda tells him that he lost them. Ryu and everybody who's currently reading knows that he's damn well lying. Ryu lets him go and Kei shows him her room. Meanwhile, the boss guy watches as they scan Tetsuo for his powers. Then he's informed that there has been an accident at the Olympics. After that, we see the boss guy enter the room with all the psychic users. He asks if Takashi feels well and talks to Matsura about Kyoko's status, who had just woken up. Kyoko tells the boss guy that Akira is about to wake up, which gets him scared and tells the guards to call an emergency. Meanwhile, Kei traps Kaneda in her room, but he busts out of the room only for them to see a vision of Kaneda as a burning spirit saying Akira, which gets both of them scared, and thus so Kei's comrades come and check on the situation. Ryu and Kei talk to each other about what happened, and they say to keep an eye on Kaneda. While this is happening, a bunch of business savvy guys have a meeting about Akira, and the boss tells them if they don't do something in time, they will have to rebuild Tokyo, assuming anyone survives, which is probably one of the hardest lines I've ever heard. Also, during this, Tetsuo experiences a lot of pain and suffering, which causes him to eventually escape the facility. The next morning, Kei and Ryu's group is raided by the military. Ryu meets up with Kei and Kaneda, informs him what is happening, and gives Kei a gun, allowing them to escape underground. The military follows them, but Kei blows up the entrance, which annoys Kaneda because she didn't warn him, and causing him to damage his eardrums. We also see Tetsuo leaving the facility, and a guy wearing protective gear on a bike saying hey to Tetsuo. Turns out this was the same biker that he beat up earlier. The biker member tries to harm Tetsuo, only to get bolts launched into his face face. The two other members with him, in fear, promise to help Tetsuo get the pill back to calm his headache. Meanwhile, the boss guy realizes that Tetsuo has escaped and he starts calling him number 41. Kaneda and Kei arrive at their new hideout, which Kei complains about. Kaneda tries to small talk and even hit on Kei, which makes her beat him up. However, Kaneda managed to steal her gun and lock her in the room, in a similar style that she did to him. Tetsuo and the two other bike gang members make it to an abandoned bowling alley where they meet up with their bosses, who look like WWE characters. The big guy tries to challenge Tetsuo, but he uses his powers to shut them up, and now he becomes the leader, even if it's gonna leave a hole in their wallets. Kei manages to leave the room by slamming it open in hopes that Kaneda isn't in trouble. Meanwhile, Kaneda arrives at the top only to be hit by lights. Turns out the boss guy has landed here. Kaneda runs away but is spotted and chased down to the sewers. The boss guy is shown something underground, which is this big shuttle of some kind. I don't know what it is really. Kei finds Kaneda's bike untouched and wonders if he even made it here. Meanwhile, in the sewers, Kaneda makes it to a dead end and decides to use his gun, which blows up the hover bike and makes a hole in the fence. Kaneda follows the tunnel after the fence and finds a massive gap and sees Kei on the other side. As he tries to explain what is happening, the last military guy who followed him appears and almost got Kaneda before he somehow manages to defeat the military guy. Kaneda and Kei banter in the sewers while Kaneda is fixing his bike. The two ride his bike back to the city. Kaneda makes it to his new hideout and gets told to help a guy with the bar before it opens. Turns out it's the bar that we saw earlier in the arc, and the owner agreed to take in Kaneda and Kei. Kei leaves up to meet with Ryu and have a chat with him. After that, she returns to the bar and meets up with Kaneda. After their chit chat, Kaneda meets up and is informed that Tetsuo is now the leader of the clown gang, which was the gang we saw earlier. The clown gang has been terrorizing every other group recently. Kaneda tells him to get every group into a meeting aside from the clown group. This gets Kei pissed off at Kaneda since they are fugitives and not meant to cause havoc. During this, Ryu meets up with this old guy named Nezu. They talk about Akira and how much the government is putting into the budget to stop Akira. Nezu also wonders about Kaneda and the pill, and Ryu confirms that Kaneda doesn't have it anymore. After we see two people get into a fight that leaves them both bleeding. I don't know what relevance this is, but apparently these two characters are important. I never picked up on their names. We see every biker gang's leader meeting up and discussing Tetsuo. A bit later, Tetsuo leaves his hideout, and then someone gets the wind of the news, which gets Kaneda and Kei trying to find Tetsuo. We see one of the guys who were bleeding on the ground earlier in the hospital telling the boss guy about Kei's location, so he sends the military towards that location. At the same time, Kaneda is about to leave, but Kei stops him and asks if she can go join. However, Kaneda tricks Kei into giving him the gun and acts like she's gonna join only to abandon her. She would later find a scooter with a key still inside, which she steals. On the road, every other gang is having a fight with the clown gang. We see some of the members fight the big guy and lose horribly. We also see Tetsuo destroying some members too. Kaneda stands with the rest of the biker gang members as Tetsuo comes, which unironically reminds me of Madara's moment from Naruto or the Avengers Assemble moment from Endgame. Anyways, Kaneda tells everyone to attack Tetsuo, and he tells Tetsuo that he really messed up this time. In the meantime, the bar gets raided by the military, and the military destroys his bar license. Like, bro, why do y'all have to be such hateable assholes? During this, all the other bike members chase Tetsuo into a warehouse. So when Kaneda and Kei arrives, his friends are informed that they trapped Tetsuo, but then Tetsuo uses his psychic power to break out. Tetsuo appears in front of Kaneda and taunts him about shooting him, which he fails to do so. So his friend tries to shoot Tetsuo, but he's struck by Tetsuo's psychic powers, killing him. Kaneda shoots Tetsuo with a gun, which surprises Tetsuo since he thought he was immune. And he runs into the warehouse and Kaneda follows him right behind on his bike. Tetsuo tries to stop Kaneda from reaching him, but fails. Right outside, the military comes and spots Tetsuo, and right after that, Kaneda hits him in the head with a metal pipe. Suddenly, the pill falls out of Kaneda's pocket. He still had it, and Tetsuo is about to eat it, but the boss guy warns him that it will kill him. Tetsuo ignores him and eats it and dies. The military is about to arrest Kaneda and not even help his friends. Like, seriously, what an asshole. This was before I realized he was dead, by the way. But before they can arrest him, Tetsuo awakens and tries to kill Kaneda. Kei uses Kaneda's bike and picks up Kaneda and gets him out of there, but Tetsuo is following. Tetsuo catches up and is about to kill him, but the boss guy stops him and argues with Tetsuo for a bit, but the argument ends with the boss guy offering to train Tetsuo and calling him 41. The arc starts off with the 3 confirmed psychic users, Takashi, Kyoko, and Masura, talking about Tetsu as he's boarding Colonel's ship. Yes, I've learned his name is Colonel now. Tetsuo notes to Colonel that he feels like somebody's talking about him, while we see Kaneda and Kei being arrested. Then we cut to Ryu spying on the landing place that is most likely the Colonel's, and afterwards talking to Nezu about what he saw. After they are done with their conversation, Nezu's chauffeur says that Lady Miyako wants to talk to him. This startles him. He meets up with her, and turns out she's a psychic person too. She's number 19. She tells Nezu about a dream she had about a massive destruction, which will do so much damage to the world, and it will make Akira only look like a pond, which sounds really scary. Then we cut to Tetsuo being scanned at Colonel's lab for any injuries, which there are none. But then the Colonel asks for any attitude, and this surprises the doctor. But he explains that he wants to prevent the second Akira from happening. This gets Tetsuo to question what he means by that. We then cut to Kei and Kaneda imprisoned at Colonel's building, where Kaneda is slamming himself at the door, yelling to be let out. However, nobody can hear them, and the 2 guards come and picks up Kei and tells her to come in for questioning. One of the guards are trying to flirt with her, but the other tells him off multiple times to just stop. They're about to enter an elevator to floor E, but then Kei notices that the security cameras break, and she uses the opportunity to kick one of them out of the elevator as the doors are closing, and knock out the other guy and steal his gun and uncuff herself. The alarms go off, which alerts the Colonel and the other psychic users. A group of guards chase her, and she makes it to a dead end. But when one of the guards come and reach where she went, he makes it to a dead end, but with no sign of her. They report her disappearance to the Colonel, which makes him mad, and he calls them idiots while they're apologizing. Kei is currently in the dark room wondering where she is. Then we see Colonel getting a report that they can't find Kei at all. But then he cancels the current search since he realizes something. Then we cut to Tetsuo sleeping with a book on his face as Kei is entering the place. Tetsuo knows she's an ally to Kaneda and asks what she wants before she shoots Tetsuo's shoulder. This annoys him and he uses his power to try to scare her, but she doesn't flinch. Kei runs out a bit later, with Tetsuo following her, and as she makes it to a dead end, Tetsuo taunts her, but then she vanishes through the walls and teleports, as seen when Tetsuo breaks the wall. Turns out Kei is also a psychic person. Wow, the twists and turns. We see the 2 guards take Kaneda with him, as he really needs to piss. And as the guards and Kaneda are arguing about it, we see a bunch of guards defeated or running away from Kei. This gets the 2 guards who are currently with Kaneda to run away, and Kaneda falls on his back. He gets back up and tries to talk to Kei and even flirt with her, but then she teleports both of them to a new place. Colonel gets the report that Tetsuo has been healed pretty fast, and while the doctor's talking with Tetsuo, he says that she has some similar powers to him, referring to Kei, since there was no way she could normally teleport. The doctor explains that others might be able to have psychic powers too, and right before Colonel enters the room, Tetsuo blurts out that they are kids, and this surprises the doctor since Tetsuo was able to read his mind. Tetsuo also says he wants to meet Akira, which surprises the doctor. Tetsuo still asks to see Akira, but the doctor tells him that he's asleep underground. Getting back to Kaneda, turns out he was teleported by Kei to an armory, which confuses him. Kei picks up a gun and Kaneda tries to talk to her. Meanwhile, the Colonel enters the room where the psychic kids are and realizes that the 3 of them are controlling Kei, which is why she can use psychic powers. They explain to the Colonel that their reasons for controlling her is to kill Tetsuo, which Kei also says out while she's being possessed. This surprises Kaneda as well since Tetsuo is in the same building. They want to kill Tetsuo since he has some kind of connection to Akira destroying the world, which isn't explained yet. Anyways, the kids stop possessing Kei, which confuses her on where she is right now. Colonel gets fed up and decides to leave, and as he is leaving the room, he meets Tetsuo, who barges into the room and the doctor is trying to stop him. Tetsuo enters and decides to shit-talk the 3 psychic kids before he realizes Takashi from the time he crashed his bike. He wants to beat up all 3 of them, so he starts to attack them before Colonel tries to stop him, which doesn't work, and he gets pressed down by gravity thanks to Tetsuo. Meanwhile, Kei tries to learn what happened and accuses Kaneda of touching her, which she didn't know, and calls him a pervert. They run into an elevator and enter it. Kyoko falls asleep and activates her powers, and as Tetsuo is about to attack her, Takashi and Masura uses their powers to try and protect Kyoko, which Tetsuo pities. Colonel tells Tetsuo to stop. Tetsuo asks where Akira is, and the doctor is about to tell him, but Colonel tries to stop him, but Tetsuo prevents him from stopping him. And just as Tetsuo gets told where Akira is, Kaneda jumps down from a window and starts to shoot Tetsuo with a laser gun that they got from the armory. After he stops, they notice how quiet it has gotten, and what they don't know yet is that Tetsuo has escaped by jumping off the building during the commotion of Kaneda firing the gun. Colonel wakes up after being knocked out, only to see Kaneda, and he wants to recapture him. But Kaneda basically tells him to shove it, and they're about to look for Tetsuo. But Kyoko tells them that he has already left to look for Akira. Kei asks Kyoko what Akira even is, and she tells Kei that Akira is number 28 and basically one of them. This gets the Colonel's attention, since he has just learned that the doctor told Tetsuo where Akira is, and he gets angry at the doctor. Kaneda and Kei decides to try to hunt for Tetsuo before being stopped by guards who recognizes that they're in a prison uniform, and just before he can do anything, Kaneda shoots the guy. They're about to enter an elevator, but it's filled with guards, and they give chase and barely avoid the bullets that the guards shoot at them. They run down a bunch of stairs, and they're confused on which floor they are. A mysterious figure tells them that they're on the 8th floor. Kaneda is about to shoot him, but he reveals that he's on their side, the resistance side. He reveals that he is the best friend of the guy who got Takashi out of there and offers to help them get out of there. They're suspicious of the guy but accepts, and with their help they escape. At their hideout, the scientist and Kaneda are chilling while Kaneda is eating. The scientist asks where Kei is. Meanwhile, Kei is visiting her aunt and talking about not trusting him, since it was Ryu's idea to free Takashi. Kei decides to have an eye on him, but to have some trust in him for now. Kei returns to the hideout and tells the two that they have to get going. Meanwhile, Ryu and the other members of the resistance are at their job, talking about their next chance of getting out of there as they're eating at the job cafeteria. We cut to the guards meeting some new guards who were appointed to the new location, which is near where Ryu has his job, and they get told that they were transferred there to protect the area since it's a code 3 security threat right now. And as they're talking about what's going on, a kid who we know as Tetsuo comes, and Tetsuo starts to body everybody there. Colonel lands a bit afterwards, but the doctor who told Tetsuo about the location behind him. Tetsuo goes to the big elevator and takes it down, while Ryu and his other follower is a bit behind him, and they make it there and decide to climb down the big elevator. Meanwhile, Kaneda's group enter the place underground and eventually makes it to upwards, and during the same time the Colonel sends some of his men down with hover bikes to find and attack Tetsuo, but fails at this badly. Eventually, Tetsuo goes crazy with his powers and causes a massive explosion which makes him faint. And while his powers are going haywire, the doctor says that his and Akira's powers are resonating. They think that the two have some kind of connection, even though Akira is in some kind of chronic sleep. Ryu sees Tetsuo's unconscious body and asks if he's fine. At the same time, Kaneda's group see a hoverbike come, and Kei along with the scientist wants to hide, but Kaneda has a different plan. He acts like he has fainted, which makes the driver stop, and as he checks on Kaneda, he yells now, and Kei knocks the driver out. They hop on the hoverbike but can't find the brakes, and this causes them to drive downwards where the elevator is, and is spotted by Ryu. Tetsuo also wakes up while Kaneda's group is passing by, and he wonders why Kaneda is there. And after that, Colonel makes it down there where Tetsuo and Ryu are, and his men are shooting at Tetsuo, but the Colonel tells them to stop as to not make Tetsuo mad. Meanwhile, Kaneda and Kei makes it to the freezing room, and while Kaneda wants to take a piss, Kei spots a map that explains where number 28 is, aka Akira is. And as they're wondering what Akira is, Tetsuo enters the room, which makes the two of them shut up and hide under the desk. At the same time, the scientists meet up with Ryu, and he punches the two of them, confirming that the scientist and Ryu aren't on the greatest of terms. The Colonel passed through the three of them, with his men, and Ryu wants to follow them to find Kei, and his friend tells him to do so and he'll keep the scientist busy. Tetsuo goes to presumably where Akira is, but he's stopped by the colonel who tries to reason with him, and he tells him that this is a horrible idea. Tetsuo ignores him and is about to open a door. However, his men tries to shoot him with a laser to stop Tetsuo, but this causes the capsule to explode and releasing Akira. Tetsuo asks if he's really talking to Akira, but he doesn't reply. Kaneda and Kei are hiding in a vent while the colonel and some of the scientists are inside the commander room. And one of the scientists decides to freeze the outside place. The colonel tries to stop him from doing this, but it's too late. This causes the doctor who told Tetsuo about Akira's location, who was still outside, to freeze to death. The colonel calls for code 7 emergency, and we see Ryu being able to escape with some guards as code 7 is being called. This causes mass panic in the city, and the lab opens an escape hatch, which was going to be used for the colonel and the others to escape. Kaneda and Kei go through the ventilation system, and just before they get out of there, Tetsuo and Akira escape through the escape hatch. But this was a part of Colonel's plan, since he sent out an airstrike, missing Tetsuo the first time. The escape hatch is about to close, but Kaneda and Kei manage to escape in time and have an affectionate moment about making it in time before they continue, and Kei finding an unconscious Akira after the first airstrike. However, the colonel orders the second airstrike, which takes Tetsuo's arm off. The volume ends with Tetsuo screaming in pain. This volume starts with everyone's reaction to Tetsuo being hit by an airstrike, and then we cut to Nezu talking with Lady Miyako, who tells her helper to do something, but Nezu objects to it. However, Miyako assures Nezu that he doesn't need her help. After talking to her helper, she tells her helper to leave and notes that she can't even cry at a moment like this. The city is in utter chaos with everyone smashing stuff and destroying everything. We see Kei and Kaneda along with an unconscious Akira trying to make it to a safe area. We then cut to some kids messing with a robot, and then a guard yells at them to scram. We learn that these robots are the final form of defense for the nation that will even work when every single human are dead. We then got back to Kei's group who made it back to Auntie's hiding place. I'll call her Auntie from now on. Kaneda is eating like a pig before Kei asks Auntie if there was any luck in seeing Ryu, but she tells her that there's no sign of him, before reassuring Kei that Ryu is fine and can survive on his own, before we get a look at Kira still unconscious. Meanwhile, a group of scientists talk amongst themselves how they're going to explain the Code 7 emergency to the government, and the colonel, along with everyone, chucks it up to a computer error when they have to testify in court. However, Nezu isn't buying that excuse, so when he's talking to someone about not trusting what he said, he is informed that Kei is calling him. Nezu tells Kei that he doesn't have permission to call him yet before being interrupted by the fact that they have Akira. Nezu and Kei meet up, and she's able to confirm everything that Nezu wants to know, and he leaves, but Kei asks if he has heard anything about Ryu, but he tells her no. Nezu heads back to his office only to see Ryu there, and he gets mad at Ryu. But Nezu then tells Ryu that he doesn't need him anymore, since he got all the information he needed by someone else. Meanwhile, Kei returns back to her hiding place while being followed, and later that night, Kaneda goes to take a piss, and when he gets back, he looks upstairs to see a girl and Akira going to the roof. Kaneda tries to stop them, but the girl pushes Kaneda back. Seems like the girl has some kind of psychic powers too. Also, this is the same girl who was Lady Miyako's helper. Kei and Auntie go and check up on Kaneda, and he tells them what happened, and Auntie pulls out a massive gun and plans to kill the girl with it. Meanwhile, the girl and Akira are stopped by robots who are able to do a number on them. Just about when the robots are about to take them out, Kaneda along with Auntie and Kei comes to save them. The girl and Akira uses the moment to escape. Meanwhile, guards learn that one of the robots were destroyed and deploy people to get the people who destroyed them. This fails when Auntie shoots the robots. Kaneda uses the moment to put Akira on his shoulder, and the four of them leave. Miyako gets frustrated and calls Nezu and grills him about his subordinates taking Akira from them. Nezu assures Miyako that they are former subordinates and that he'll get Akira back. She excuses him after that. Nezu gets a call from Rei and uses this opportunity to meet them at the ship. He and Kei talks about Akira before Nezu takes a helicopter with Akira on it to safety. Meanwhile, Kaneda and Auntie are served food, and Kei is with a guard who shoots Kei in the shoulder. Also turns out the food that they were given were poisoned, and Kaneda feels sick. Auntie, who did need the food, goes to find Kei and saves her from certain death. They escape, but not before being able to trick Nezu's allies into revealing where they took Akira. Nezu learns that the three of them have escaped and wants to find him. He is driven by the car he stopped by guards near the dock. They recognize Nezu and shoot at the car, but the driver drives away, and the guards give chase. Colonel had decided to ask the three psychic users, Takashi, Mazura, and Kyoko, to team up, and they're flying above the city as the whole Nezu thing is happening. Meanwhile, Kei, Kaneda, and Auntie make it to shore, but not before Kaneda decides to let the boat crash into the bridge. Kei asks if this was necessary, and Kaneda says it was a great distraction. Kaneda is able to sneak into Miyako's building and wants to find a way to get into the room Akira is in, and luckily, a guy comes in and tells the others that Nezu is being shot at and they need to help him. So the three of them leave, and the guy, who has some kind of learning disability, has to stay. Kaneda knocks him out. Kaneda decides to take Akira with him, and he's able to escape but stopped by one of the building guards who is about to shoot him, but Kei comes and saves him. They escape and reunite with Auntie. Meanwhile, Nezu makes it back to the hideout after being chased and shot by guards, only to find Akira gone, and Kaneda having left a not so nice message. Also at the same time, Ryu is suspecting something big is happening since it has got Nezu all worked up. Meanwhile, Kei's group is able to escape, but is stopped by three people, including the girl who was Miyako's helper. They start fighting Kei's group, but gets bodied by them, until Colonel's ship comes and lands. The three kids use the commotion to take Akira and run off. Sasaki, the girl who is Miyako's helper, is with Akira, but gets stopped by Nezu's army, along with Nezu, who monologues about Akira, but then Sasaki is saved by the other girl, who later gets shot by the guards. Meanwhile, the third girl is running, finds herself in the way of Colonel and Takashi, who are told by Kyoko that their psychic powers come from Akira but is limited. Colonel orders Takashi to fight the girl. He is very reluctant about it but still does it. She is able to protect herself but only tires herself out and warns Sasaki telepathically. Meanwhile, Kaneda steals a fucking tank and tricks the guy inside to shoot Nezu's men, only for him to steal the tank and get Auntie and Kei inside the tank. I wanted to talk about this, but like, holy shit, the amount of times I've seen Kaneda or one of the allies doing some crazy shit is insane. I feel like if they had plot armor, they could basically solo Goku at this point if they wanted to. Like, god damn, this is some insane shit for an anime character. He's basically a batshit insane protagonist. Anyways, they take the tank and cause havoc trying to find Akira, only to end up in a shopping mall and exploding the tank while fighting enemies. After knocking out the last opponent, they leave the mall area. Ryu also appears and finds Akira in a dumpster and is about to leave with him, but is stopped by Nezu, who reveals it's Akira, which shocks Ryu. Ryu fires at Nezu, harming him, but not killing him yet. Ryu and Akira hide from the military and makes it to a bridge and is stopped by Sasaki, who then gets stopped by Kei's group. Kei and Ryu finally reunite, but it's cut short when Sasaki is able to escape with Akira, only for the Colonel and his army to come and stop everything. They're about to arrest everyone when Takashi tries to talk to Akira, only for Takashi to get sniped in the head by Nezu, who then gets fired at by Colonel's men. Takashi is now presumably dead, which angers Akira to the point where he causes an explosion so big that it's done in 20 pages. And in these pages, we see Sasaki die, which Lady Miyako mourns, and possibly Kaneda dying. I'm not fully sure about that one. After the whole explosion, we see every surviving person's reaction to everything. We end the volume with Tetsuo making his first appearance in a while to give Akira a hand. The two of them fly together into the sky. We start the volume with possibly a time skip and us seeing how the city has gone to ruins. A military helicopter is about to land, but gets surrounded by people. Turns out a new faction called the Great Tokyo Empire, and the lieutenant of the empire is with them, stealing this helicopter. We then see a bit of the empire before we cut to a bunch of people praying for the Empire's figurehead, Akira, and Tetsuo being with them, being the Prime Minister and all. So it turns out the two started a whole empire together. We then cut to a gang surrounding a masked person. They are about to attack this masked person, but their ally shows up and destroys the gang. However, the ally has a familiar face. Turns out the two we're seeing right now are Kei and Auntie, who I'll be calling Chiyoko from now on. We see some guys entering a bar asking for a beer and also asking if the Empire isn't a joke, and a familiar face is in the bar. The bartender tells the two about the Great Empire. Then we cut to Klano, who sees an explosion and the casualties of the explosion before one of the soldiers recognizes him, but he ignores him. The soldier asks if he can come with Klano, but it tells him it's too late before leaving. Back to Kei and Chiyoko. They make it to an abandoned mall where Masura and Kyoko are being held, and she gives them medicine to make sure that they don't go wild. Kyoko suddenly starts talking about number 19 before the bartender talks about Miyako, which gets the guy questioning. Turns out Lady Miyako has become some sort of a figurehead of the East, and Akira is a figurehead of the West part of Neo Tokyo. We then cut to Tetsuo, who learns that the 3 selected people have arrived. Tetsuo gives them drugs which most likely activate their psychic powers, and he shows them how to use their powers, and he tells them to try to use their psychic powers as well. The 3 of them are trying, but 2 of them end up dead and the 3rd one barely lived with some serious injuries, in which Tetsuo tells them to feed him as much pills regularly and train him. Tetsuo walks back to his place where Akira is staring at the sky and Tetsuo is overfeeding himself with pills. Cutting back to Kei's group, she tells Chiyoko that the psychic users have fallen asleep. Kei notes that one of them said that they should go ask number 19, and both of them are stumped on who this number 19 is. Kei has an idea looking at a place in Miyako's territory, which makes Chiyoko skeptical, but Kei reassures her that it's the only option they got. Chiyoko unlocks the door to find Ryu drunk. This gets Kei mad, and she asks what happened to their friends, which confuses Ryu on what she means. Chiyoko goes to the place and grabs a gun. Then when she's about to ask Kei something, she sees Ryu kissing her. Chiyoko quickly grabs her off a drunk Ryu, and she tells him to cool off his head. Chiyoko drags Kei away from him before Kei says she loves Ryu, which gets Chiyoko to slap Kei and tell her not to waste time on pitying him. Before we see Ryu saying that all his friends are dead. Damn, something I just realized is how much Kaneda added to the group in terms of comedy. And without him, it just feels really sad. And it was the next day, the 2 who entered the bar are about to set off to see Akira before we hear gunshots and we see a capped guy running away. Turns out the capped guy is a spy in the Empire, and the lieutenant caught him before Tetsuo's assistant tells him to publicly execute the spy. So the lieutenant executes the spy in front of everyone using what I would assume is psychic powers. And after the spy is dead, the Empire cheers for Akira. The 2 guys were also watching, understanding their big secret power. Kei and Chiyoko makes it to the territory before they realize that number 19 is in the temple. They enter and start looking for number 19. We cut back to the 2 guys who are talking about what they saw before they see a one-eyed guy commentating on what they're doing. And when they try to run away, they're stopped by Tetsuo's assistant. And then the lieutenant, who also appears, gets ready to attack the 2 guys. And the 2 guys get ready to fight. They trade blows pretty good with each other before the lieutenant kills one of the guys, causing the other guy to hit him so hard that he gets glass on his face, and one kick after that kills the lieutenant. The commentating guy announced that the remaining guy has killed one of their brothers and must be caught, while Ryu is watching this go down. Meanwhile, Kei finds Lady Miyako, who is number 19, and Miyako says that she was expecting her. She monologues before giving Kei some medicine, which will help the 2, and she tells Kei to bring the 2 to see her. They rush back to the hideout to give them the medicine. Meanwhile, the surviving guy is running and Ryu finds him, and they talk. They decide to temporarily team up since the guy wants to know about Akira, which Ryu knows about. They decide to go underground. The one-eyed guy tells Tetsuo's assistant about the guy's new ally and how they're not from the same place, which makes Tetsuo's assistant note that there exists one group beyond Akira's reach. Parade is happening for Akira, and Tetsuo gives the followers food infused with pills. One of the people, a little girl, is stalked by Tetsuo's assistant, who asks if she's a naturalized citizen, and she denies, saying that she was going to give her father the food. Tetsuo's assistant takes the food and dumps it on the ground before bringing the girl somewhere. Kei and Chiyoko are heading back before Chiyoko hears something. They're ready to attack, but nothing appears, so they keep going. Tetsuo's assistant welcomes Tetsuo back and tells him that he was only able to get 3 sex slaves because everyone else left. He enters to see the girls. They start laying on the bed and he gives all girls the pills. Everyone eats and has hallucinations, everyone aside from the girl we saw earlier. Tetsuo asks why she didn't take the pill and she replies that her father is sick and she saved it for him. He asks what her name is and she replies Kaori. He tells Kaori to wait while he checks on Akira. Akira and Tetsuo have an argument about the hallucination before Akira attacks Tetsuo, launching him back to his hideout. Tetsuo's men wonder what's going on before we see distressed Tetsuo wondering what something was. Before we cut back to Ryu and the guy who was talking about Akira and how he got both America and Russia afraid of him. They head out and Ryu tries to understand the guy's plan against Akira, but he doesn't want to reveal. They argue for a bit before they leave. We see Tetsuo's men removing the bodies of the 2 women who ate the pills before his assistant gets a report that 2 unidentified men with weapons have been spotted and they have some weird kids with them. Turns out it's Kei, Chiyoko, and the 2 psychic kids. Tetsuo's assistant tells the report guy to track them before he cut to Tetsuo and Kaori in the hideout. Tetsuo is still being freaked out while Kaori watches. Kei notices that the guy, the report guy from earlier, is still watching them. Chiyoko considers fighting, but Kei tells her it's too risky. They ultimately decide to try to get to Lady Miyako's place for safety. As they're walking in the complex, Kei wants to find Ryu, but Chiyoko assures her that he can survive on his own. Before the 2 get surrounded by 3 weird looking people, they learn that the 3 are after Masura and Kyoko, so Chiyoko and Kei are fighting the 3 weirdos, and are actually doing pretty well. Chiyoko notices that Akira's followers are taking Masura and Kyoko, so they fight Akira's followers. They're trying to stop them, but one of them, the report guy, has Chiyoko at gunpoint. But Chiyoko isn't phased and notices that he stole her gun. He's about to shoot, but he forgot to turn the safety on, and she was able to take her gun back, killing the guy in the process. Kei gets surrounded by guys, and they take her to a dark room and are about to redo of healer her. But Chiyoko finds her in time and kills everyone in the room, but not before getting stabbed on the side of the abs. She tells Kei to get Masura to Lady Kyoko before putting the bandana on. She plans on getting Kyoko back. She refuses the idea because she can't let Chiyoko go alone because she will get killed. But Chiyoko says that they have no other options since they can't let Masura be alone. So this is the only option. I'm going to say this now. If Chiyoko dies, she will be going to the heaven of goats that I made back in my Promised Neverland jailbreak video. Chiyoko tells Kei to meet her at the temple before sprinting towards where they took Kyoko. At Akira's place, we see some of the followers waiting for him before he cut back to Ryu and the guy looking at how popular the place is waiting for Akira. We then cut to Kaori feeding Akira and Tetsuo's assistant talking about Akira with an Empire member before Kaori tells the 2 that he's taken a nap. Kaori walks before getting called by Tetsuo, who says he has a plan and mentions that blind old bat before he tells her that he wants to see her, probably referring to Lady Miyako. Some of the Empire members are transferring Kyoko before a rocket gets launched at them. Turns out it's Chiyoko who destroys the group and manages to save Kyoko. The one-eyed guy, who can see everything, reports of Chiyoko's doing, and she hurries to get Kyoko and get away before getting surrounded by some of the Empire members from above. We then cut to Kaori giving Tetsuo a dose of medicine and comforting him before he leaves to see the old bat. We cut to Kei carrying Masura before being attacked by enemies and managed to destroy them without a problem. She finished killing all of them and she grabs Masura and leaves. More people come and start chasing Kei, but they stop when they see that the bishop looking people, which confuses Kei. They say Lady Miyako's been awaiting her, and Kei realizes that they're talking about number 19. Meanwhile, Tetsuo meets up with Lady Miyako and sees a mural behind her, and she asks if it's familiar to Tetsuo, and he is sweating bullets. She asks what he wants to know, and Tetsuo replies Akira. During this, Chiyoko is still being chased by the Empire and Tetsuo's assistant. Back to Miyako, she gives us a massive lore dump about the psychic powers and we learn Akira's origin. After a long lore dump, Miyako tells Tetsuo to come over his weakness of his power and let it flow freely, but Tetsuo doesn't want to hear it and leaves. We get a short scene of Kaori and Akira before we return to Chiyoko still fighting the Empire. Chiyoko runs out of bullets and is forced to run away. Meanwhile, one of the people fighting has super strength and gives Chiyoko a difficult challenge. She fights some of the members of the Empire before the strong guy destroys a bit of the bridge, which makes Chiyoko and Kyoko fall down below, and this angers Tetsuo's assistant. Chiyoko looks around in a field of skeleton and wonder where she is. The Empire shines a light to find her, but they can't find her, and she managed to escape into the waters and manages to leave before meeting the colonel of all people. He wonders what she is doing with Kyoko, but they have no time and are forced to work together. We see Tetsuo on the roof of Miyako's place watching Kei getting Masura to her place, while a spy of the Empire is watching and runs a report of his findings. Colonel asks Chiyoko if she's alright before she faints of blood loss. Tetsuo arrives back to see Kaori and Akira sleeping in Akira's bed before he teleports to the throne while in pain. Tetsuo's men gets a report from Seer, the one-eyed guy, that Masura is at Lady Miyako's temple, which shocks them. Kei manages to get Masura to Lady Miyako's place, but she asks where Kyoko is, and she tells her she's with Chiyoko, who promised to get her here. Chiyoko is barely conscious while he tells Colonel to bring Kyoko to number 19 and that Masura is at Miyako's place, which shocks Colonel. Colonel brings Chiyoko to some abandoned ruins and meets one of the long-living robots. We cut to Kyoko at a place of a doctor who does some research. We then cut back to Kaori and Akira hanging out before we see Tetsuo in pain. Ryu makes some more small talk with the guy before we see Tetsuo's assistant go to see Tetsuo and gives him a report of their findings about finding where Masura is. But Tetsuo yells him to get lost while in pain. Tetsuo's assistant takes control of the Empire while Tetsuo is in pain and orders the men, and rather all the fighting men they can. We see Colonel trying to patch up Chiyoko and afterwards having an argument with the doctor. We cut to Miyako asking for Matsura's state, which is fine, and she asks where Kei is, who is currently taking a bath. When she is done, she stares out at the window into the city before Miyako comes and talks with Kei. We learn that she uses her psychic powers to see through Kei's eyes into the city, and notes how depressing it is. Also, I should note that Miyako is blind. Should have said that earlier, but yeah. They walk together for a while, talking about the future and how she and Kaneda will be a part of the future of Neo Tokyo, which shocks Kei. But Miyako notes that Kaneda is beyond the boundaries of the world before thinking for now, basically hinting at Kaneda might be alive. The Empire is getting ready to attack while Ryu and the guy is watching, and as the Empire is getting ready, we see Colonel enter the doctor's place asking what he's up to, before attacking the doctor and finding out that the doctor is trying to kill Kyoko. The doctor tries to justify his reasoning, but Colonel tells him that the trauma of her death would cause another massive explosion by Akira. Colonel then tells him to get back to work and gives him some packs of cigarettes, as he asked. Kaori and Akira are relaxing before Kaori finds Tetsuo's pills. And Tetsuo, sitting behind him, tells them that he threw them away, says that he doesn't need them anymore, while he looks in the sky. Ryu and the guy are heading to the lookout place for where they can see at Akira's place, and when they make it there, they see Tetsuo having a manic episode, so strong he vanishes and appears in the ocean, and creates a blast so strong all the psychic users feels it. And even Masura and Kyoko wakes up. Colonel is right next to Kyoko when she wakes up and hears her say to get to Miyako's place. During this, the Empire is getting ready to attack Miyako's place. Colonel and the doctor talk about getting the weapon ready before the Colonel has to move Kyoko to Miyako's place. A flood hits Ryu and the other guy, and we see Tetsuo telling them that he killed some people on the boat and how weak they are. Turns out that they were the guy's allies, and the guy gets so mad that he tries to shoot Tetsuo, but if Volume 1 has told us anything, bullets doesn't work on him. Tetsuo says that he probably came to try and kill Akira. Then he summons a lightning attack to attack the two, but it misses, and he laughs while vanishing. At the temple, the Empire enters demanding to see Miyako, but one of the monks tell them that she's busy with meditation, and they don't take that lightly, so they kill the monk and start looking for Kei and Masura. Miyako is mortified to learn that they're using violence and gets even more worried when she is informed that they're using guns. The Empire is killing everyone who's trying to stop them, and Kei sees the Empire coming, so she tries to leave, but one of the members spots her and reveals her location, but she knocks the member down. Colonel gets the weapon from the doctor and heads out to the temple to get Kyoko to Miyako. He uses the robot from earlier as a safe place to keep Kyoko hidden and rides the robot to the temple. The assistant of Tetsuo orders one of the members to kill the monk, but he hesitates for some reason. We then cut to Kei getting ready to attack the Empire before hearing a sound. It's the spirit of Kaneda, but as soon as he appeared, he vanished. Tetsuo's assistant makes it to Miyako's place and gets ready to attack her, but the guns won't work since the monks are using psychic powers to suppress the weapon, which causes them to explode on the members themselves. Some of the members from the Empire try to find out where Masura is and stumbles across a place filled with monks, and they start following them. Kei starts to run down the hall and sees the same monk we just saw, dead. She heads straight forward in the path and finds the members, and she kills them without any issues. She makes it to where Masura's room is, where two monks greet Kei and confirms that Masura is fine. She heads back to help Miyako. Miyako and her monks are still fighting the Empire while Kei is running back. One of the members from the Empire recognizes Kei as the girl who was with Kaneda at Harukiya, so he follows her. Kei disguised herself as one of the members and manages to capture Tetsuo's assistant since Miyako told her not to kill him. She brings him outside and uses him as a way for the Empire to leave. And thanks to that guy from earlier, they surrender. While Tetsuo is on top of the building, his assistant says that they will crush them while they leave. The guy asks if Kei recognizes him and asks if she's the girl with Kaneda at Harukiya, which gets her to recognize him. They both laugh and understanding one another are alive. They sit near rocks and catch up with each other before he asks what's up with Kaneda, and Kei confirms he's dead, which makes him upset. Then he asks her if her and Kaneda did it, but she shuts down the idea, saying that they were just friends. We learn that his name is Kai. They head back to the temple and help out. The Empire are planning to return in an hour and get prepared. Meanwhile, Colonel sees the temple from a distance and tells the robot to go forward. Kei talks to Miyako about leaving and she refuses the idea. Meanwhile, Kai has to wait outside the room. However, Kai runs into Miyako's place to warn Kei that the Empire is back. Colonel sees what's going on and notes that these are Tetsuo's men. Panic is happening and Kei and Kai help with getting the refugees to safety. Kei tells Miyako that if she won't leave, then she will take Matsura and go. But then Miyako asks Kei if she feels the build of tension and energy through her chase and that it might collapse. Kai and Kei plan to get Masura up the towers safely away from the Empire. The Empire is causing so much damage while Colonel looks at what is happening, calling the Empire monsters. Two members of the Empire find Colonel. One of them is ready to attack, but the other one recognizes Colonel since it's his former boss and hesitates to attack Colonel. Meanwhile, Kei and Kai help the monks move Masura. They make it to the elevator, and as they talk about all the fuss being unnecessary, Masura wakes up and wonders where Kyoko is before feeling Tetsuo's powers, and the same does Kyoko, who cries for Masura. The former military guy still hesitates to shoot Colonel, which angers the other guy, but just before he can do anything, the robot opens up and Kyoko tells Colonel to hurry up to the tower and that Masura is there. Colonel is confused and tries to understand, but the Empire member shoots him and gets the upper hand. But before he can kill Colonel, the former military member kills the Empire guy to save Colonel out of the respect he has for the Colonel. The assistant of Tetsuo gets warned about Colonel, and we see the military guy help Colonel, and he tells him about the surviving members of the military, and Colonel asks why he stayed, but he starts talking about himself. He gets shot by the Empire, which enrages the Colonel. Kei's group makes it to the top of the tower, but they are greeted with Tetsuo, who asks for more of the drugs. Miyako refuses, which enrages Tetsuo. Colonel is fighting the Empire while this is happening, and when Colonel shoots the weapon, he launches a massive nuke, which gets everyone's reaction. Even Akira reacts. He is not even close to the nuke. The nuke causes so much distress to the psychic people, and it explodes midair. The nuke also sucked a lot of buildings when it explodes, and it makes it rain back. And even Kaneda rains down. Wait, what? Tetsuo is also flying through space, and from what we see a bunch of flashbacks assumably Akira's past, but Tetsuo is the one who sees this. Honestly, this is just getting confusing at this point. Anyways, Tetsuo makes it back to Akira's place where Akira is waiting for him, angered. Akira is so angered that he causes Tetsuo to bow down on him, which shocks Kaori. The volume ends with Kaneda asking if it's all over. The volume starts in a military base where we see two businessmen meet up with a general on the ship. After talking to the general, they are escorted to a room filled with other people, and they greet each other. After introductions and all that stuff, they start having a meeting where they talk about important stuff that I'm sure of. We then move back to where the explosion happened last time, where Kei and Kaneda have a reunion, which is great to see, but it gets interrupted with Kai being happy to see Kaneda. At the same time, Colonel is holding Kyoko while onlookers are watching. Kai and Kaneda are questioning why Colonel is here. He tells Kei's group about what Kyoko told her before Miyako comes and takes Kyoko. As Kyoko is given to the monks, Colonel falls over due to blood loss, and Miyako tells him he's damaged and has to get inside to receive help. Kei and a monk help Colonel inside, and Kaneda asks Kai if he has a clue what's happening, which makes him reply he doesn't have an idea. We also cut back to the meeting where they're talking about the soul explosion, the laser that Colonel fired last time. They also talk about the psychic people and some stuff about Akira. I kinda lost track of what they were talking about since it was boring as shit. And after all that, we return to Miyako, who talks about Kyoko's possible recovery time and then wonders what is going on with Tetsuo. One of the monks asks if she's alright, and she replies that she is trembling. Colonel is told he has to rest at Miyako's place for several days, and while he's talking to Kei about Kyoko, Kei also manages to get Colonel to confess that he was the one who fired the laser and that he will do it again, planning on taking responsibility for the seed he had planted, referring to Tetsuo. At the same time, Kaneda and Kai are taking a piss break, and Kaneda asks Kai what happened to Akira, and he tells Kaneda about the Empire and all that. Kai decides to drag Kaneda to meet the rest of the gang, which confuses Kaneda. At the same time, Kei is looking for Kaneda. Kai brings Kaneda into the gang's hideout, and we meet the leader, Joker, aka the guy who was a part of Tetsuo's former group. They talk about taking down Tetsuo, and Kaneda agrees to join them, and asks for new clothes since his current ones are torn up. While this is happening, Kei and Colonel head off as well. Kaneda gets some new clothes and is also shown the same type of bike he used to have. He was also shown a flying platform Kai found underground. While this is happening, we see the monk report to Miyako that Kei has left with Colonel, which infuriates her. She tells them to bring her back. They even went to Kaneda and asked them to see Miyako, and tells him Kei has disappeared, which confuses him. Kei and Colonel are walking together, and Seer spots them. Tetsuo's assistant arrives and asks Kaori where Akira and Tetsuo are, but she doesn't know since they suddenly vanished. He slaps her for this, but suddenly the ground starts shaking. It's an earthquake that shocks everyone. Even Kaneda, who argues with Miyako that what Kei is doing is none of his business, is shocked by the sudden earthquake. But Miyako realizes what is causing the earthquake, which is the arrival of Tetsuo and Akira, who appear back in their base. Tetsuo's hair has changed to the same color as the other three psychic kids. His assistant tries to ask Tetsuo for help against Miyako, but he's too tired. However, his assistant insists, so Tetsuo sends a shockwave that shuts him up. Tetsuo and Akira go to rest, and Kaori goes to Tetsuo to comfort him. Meanwhile, on the military ship, a tsunami is about to hit. Once it hits, everything goes to chaos, and after it happened, they talk about how it happened and speculates it has to be Akira's doing. Kaneda asks Miyako for a favor in order to look for Kei, and she agrees. Kai asks how he's going to find Kei, and Kaneda has an idea of where she's going. Meanwhile, Kei and Colonel are traveling while being tracked by Seer and some of the Empire. While this is going on, Kaneda and Kai rides motorbikes inside, which angers Joker. They ride out to the exit and promises to bring the bikes back before riding to get to Kei faster. They ride the subway tracks to move even faster. Meanwhile, the Empire confronts Kei and Colonel. Kei gets the upper hand and uses that time to escape with Colonel. The muscular guy gets so mad he charges towards Colonel, but Colonel suplexes him to the ground. Kei asks if everything is okay, but Colonel points towards the building about something. They get to the place he pointed at and finds one of the robots. The robots hear it's Colonel and let him go. The Empire makes it to the building as well. Meanwhile, Kay and Colonel makes it to the doctor's hideout, and Kay sees Chiyoko alive but out cold. The Empire fight the robot from earlier and manages to break it. Kaneda and Kai are still traveling through the tunnel and see a poltergeist of Kay before it vanishes. The doctor and Colonel talk to each other but hear a noise. The Colonel realizes that they were followed. They use the opportunity to lure the Empire outdoors, where another robot shoots some of them, and Colonel firing at the others as well. Kaneda and Kai makes it out of the underground and they hear gunshots and decide to follow the noise. Kay asks the doctor if they can use one of the robots to transfer Chiyoko to Miyako's empire before the muscular empire member makes it to Chiyoko's hiding place. While Kaneda and Kai are closing in on the gunfire outside, Kay asks the doctor how long it'll take to modify the robot, and when he responds with 5 to 10 hours, she tells him to start and that she'll check on Chiyoko. But when she makes it there, she sees the muscular empire member is there and hits him with a metal pipe. But the member gets the upper hand, so Kay runs and takes the doctor with him as she's getting chased. We cut to Colonel cornered by one of the Empire members, and when the member tries to look for Colonel, he hears something. It's Kaneda and Kai who hit the guy with their bikes. Kaneda breaks the bike in the process. Colonel asks why the two of them are here, and Kaneda replies with Kay. The doctor gets knocked out and Kay gets chased down by the Empire member. She's eventually caught and hurt so badly she's knocked out. But before she gets killed, Colonel comes and shoots the muscular member guy, and Kaneda rushes to check on her, only to find her really hurt, which angers him. The muscular guy is still alive and makes noises, so Colonel finishes him off. We see a few shots of the members of the Empire and the Doctor before we cut to Akira resting on his throne. Then we cut to the military ship where the people inside are freaking out since they sent out the Akira Assassination Corps to their ship, which gets them talking, and we see a helicopter approaching them. We then cut to Colonel staring out and hearing something, but realizes it's Kai. They talk about the Empire member at the fireplace, and Kai basically rubbing in Colonel's face that this is all his fault. We then see Kaneda sitting with an unconscious Kay. Kai finds Kaneda again and they decide to check on the doctor. We then cut for a bit to the military base and meet the Akira Assassination Corps. I have no hope for them. Before we go back to Colonel and Kaneda carrying Chiyoko and Kay to the caretaker robot as they shit talk each other. Kaneda is taught how to control the robot, and Kai comes back with a repaired bike. Also, Colonel gives Kaneda a weapon to fight Tetsuo with, and he thanks them and promises to kill Tetsuo before Kaneda and Kai, along with Chiyoko and Kay inside the robot, leaves. We see the Empire giving out food before Tetsuo's assistant notes how fewer people there are when they see a sketchy guy who had some food on him. Turns out he got the food from Miyako, which enrages Tetsuo's assistant. And then they see a helicopter. Seer alerts of a spy, and the guy who was with Ryu gets a package, but fails to get it, but turns out Ryu is the one who gets it, and asks what is inside. Turns out it's rigged with explosives. We see Tetsuo looking at the helicopter before leaving, which makes Kaori wonder where he went. We see the military ready to take off, but as the pilot is ready to take off, he sees something standing there. The jet explodes, which shocks the whole base. The monk type guy inside with the smart people alerts them that he is here. Turns out the person that he meant was Tetsuo, or as they know him, number 41. They talk for a bit and Tetsuo explains about his and Akira's powers. And instead of telling more, he shows them the power which causes the entire room to be destroyed. At the same time, Miyako wonders about Kei and Kaneda, and Kai gets stuck in some rocks. We then see Ryu and the guy chatting, while the guy tells Ryu to get lost as he goes through the giant case. Tetsuo returns back to the throne place. His assistant gives him a report about Miyako's influence going over the Empire. The guy is gearing up with stuff from the case. Turns out it's a biochemical weapon. Ryu refuses the idea of him using it since those weapons will kill everyone, but the guy shrugs him off and tries to leave. Ryu tries to stop him from leaving, but he gets punched in the face by the guy. Miyako gets the news that Kei is returning, but she's badly wounded. Miyako says that she'll heal her right away. Miyako uses her powers to heal Kei, which confuses Kaneda, but Kyoko explains it in a way that Kaneda understands it. So he leaves and tells Kai the good news. Masura enters the room after Kanada leaves and says Kei will be weakened after recovery, and that Tetsuo is still a big problem. Outside, Joker confronts Kanada and Kai about only bringing one of the bikes, so Kanada tells Kai to handle the situation before he runs away. Elsewhere, the Empire are planning on having a convocation. Everyone hears about this, even from Miyako's side. Tetsuo's assistant is making sure it all goes well, while we see people being dragged out of their house to go to this convocation. And after a bit, it starts. They manage to get electricity and basically use the convocation to get the Empire to believe in Akira again. We see Akira and Tetsuo appear at the center as figureheads in all this. The guy tries to find a way to get to Akira, but Ryu stops him and drags him to an alleyway. We also see people from the military in the hospital. Turns out, Tetsuo did a great deal of damage to them, even breaking some of their ribs. The general denies that Tetsuo was even on the ship and chucks it up to a lead explosion. This angers the unharmed people from the ship. We then cut back to the convocation where a concert is happening and everyone is enjoying themselves. Tetsuo's assistant suggests showing what they're capable of doing, but Tetsuo doesn't agree with it, so his assistant begs, and he decides to do it. So when he does it, he goes to the center stage, and he asks if he should use the moon, and Akira agrees. He flies to the moon, and lands on it, only to start attacking it. Onlookers and some of the people from the military ship are looking at the moon, and Tetsuo destroys the moon. The moon shards that are remaining are sent down to Earth, causing a meteor shower to happen, destroying buildings, killing several people, even Ryu from what it seems. Trust me, he doesn't die. Miyako, Kyoko, and Masura talk about what happened and decide they have to figure out a plan before Tetsuo manages to master his powers. Meanwhile, Kanada brings Joker some of the scrap metal and asks if he's out of his payment for the bike, but Joker calls it useless and the two starts to argue. But Kai hears something and tells the two to stop fighting and asks if they hear something. A gust of debris and water is coming and they get on their bikes and drive away fast. They try to drive fast, but one by one everyone gets hit by the water. Everyone survives, but their bikes either vanished or broke down. Kai says it's odd that they were hit by seawater, and even Kanada agrees with him. We then cut to Kei, who is now awake, and then Miyako comes and talks with Kei. Miyako asks what she sees outside and explains that the moon has been destroyed by Tetsuo, and that the time they have awaited has come. Kei is confused on why she said we, and then we see Masura and Kyoko right behind them, and they explain to Kei about Tetsuo's unlocking power, that of Akira's level, which shocks Kei to hear. And she realizes that Miyako wants to use her powers like they did in the lab. We see Kanada, Kei, and Joker make it outside and sees the skies are dark. Kanada goes to find Miyako while Joker drags Kai to find the bikes. We see Kei worried for Kanada. We then get to the military base where soldiers are getting ready to gear up. We also learn that the guy with Ryu, Lieutenant George Yamada, I'll call him Yamada from now on, they sound out the soldiers, and I think this means they might have something to do with Yamada, I don't know, but their main target is Akira. We then cut to Tetsuo's assistant making it to where Tetsuo is, and one of the members says that he just wants to go inside, and they hear a noise. A guy checks it out and it turns out to be Tetsuo, who has deformed his arms really badly, which scares the guy. Tetsuo is able to hide it from everyone else, and the assistant asks if everything is good, and he replies with everything is fine. Kanada sees that there's a hole in the moon and realizes this must be Tetsuo's doing. Colonel and the doctor find out that the Americans are trying to take over the soul. The doctor explains that he can buy time for 3 days, and Colonel tells him not to fail him while he goes. Meanwhile, the military is on their way, and Kanada makes it to the temple and asks where Kei is and storms in to find her. Kei and Miyako go down to the purification after she takes a bath. Before they could do anything, Kanada storms to find Kei and Miyako and wonders what is going on and if Tetsuo is behind this all. Miyako decides to leave them be, and when Kanada is confused on why they left, Kei asks to stay with her. And just before they kiss, Kanada tries to find out what is going on, and Kei promises to tell him. During this time, the American military are trying to find Akira. Kei explains everything, which annoys Kanada even more, and he wants to kill Miyako. Kei tries to explain she wants to go through this purification for the sake of everyone who died, but Kanada promises to be the one who kills Tetsuo before he storms off. This makes Kei sad, but Kanada comes back and said he forgot something before kissing Kay, and promises to do it all night long next time they meet before he leaves. My man Kaneda really got that riz in him. Like, god damn. We cut to Akira falling asleep and Kaori confirming that he has fallen asleep to Tetsuo's assistant. Kaori asks how Tetsuo is doing, and he replies with Tetsuo having killed a lot of their men, and the assistant questions what is going on, before we see the Empire cleaning up their mess. And Kaori sees this going on and asks if Tetsuo is here, and one of the cleaners tells her that he's at the end of the hall. Kaori sees a corpse when she gets there and is greeted by Tetsuo, who asks her to come to him. And we see his metal arm has become more of a flesh mix with metal. Kaori is afraid of what Tetsuo has become, but Tetsuo tries to comfort her, and he hugs her. We then cut to Karada going to Kai and Joker, and is about to tell them what Kei is planning on doing, but Joker punches him. A bit later, he is able to explain the situation, which shocks the two. Joker and Kai are on board to help, and Joker shows him the weapon he got since Kaneda is planning on killing Tetsuo himself. Joker also shows Kaneda a massive laser gun, but not only that, he also repaired the flying platform so they can use it to fight Tetsuo. We then see a scared Tetsuo being comforted by Kaori, before we cut to the American military searching the city. But as the group are searching, they hear someone give information. Turns out it's Seer, and the military starts to firing at him, but fails at hitting him. But before they can do anything, someone pushes Seer off the building. Turns out it's Yamada, who reunites with the military as Ryu is looking at them. Tetsuo's assistant learns of Seer's death by the American military, which gets them to sound the alarms and get the Empire ready for battle. We see Colonel enter the base and ask the two Empire members where Tetsuo is, while the Empire is getting ready. Tetsuo's assistant tells one of the members to get Kaori, but when he finds her, Tetsuo tells the guy she's asleep, while getting wider. We see Joker's crew trying to figure out a plan, but Kaneda says screw it, and that they don't need a plan. And when he gets to the robot, he yells at Joker to get going. We also see the people on the military ship getting ready to go on a suicide mission to stop the incoming war. Before we cut to Tetsuo's assistant telling the other guy to take a look, and when he does, the guy gets destroyed by Tetsuo's overgrown arm, which his assistant looks at. The flesh thing, it creates so much damage that the colonel wonders what is going on, before he sees wires pop up and Tetsuo appear right in front of him, all white. Questioning where he is, he decides to leave before Colonel gets a chance of attacking him. And then we see Tetsuo's assistant questioning what he's going to do. We also see the military approaching before we see the military ship talk among themselves. But out of nowhere, the ship gets attacked by Tetsuo. Tetsuo asks what is happening to his body, and the monk replies that his body is not enough to feed his own power, which angers Tetsuo. The lieutenant of the ship had enough and shoots Tetsuo with a gun. And we all know shooting Tetsuo never works. All Tetsuo does is laugh while vanishing away. However, the monk can sense that he's still in the ship, and when he tries to leave, they see the ship being deformed a bit. We also see the military use the nuke, which Tetsuo stares at. We then see the jet returning, which Tetsuo gets on and takes over, but the military manages to shoot down the plane. However, Tetsuo survives and launches a missile from the jet, which hits the military base. And then Kei appears and gets ready to fight Tetsuo. Why is Kei here? I don't know, but I think she came around with time of the missile. Kei and Tetsuo have a face-off where they talk to each other before they fight each other. Kei gets trapped by Tetsuo's wires, and Kei, with the help of Miyako, manages to land a missile on him. Tetsuo is about to throw a fighter jet at her, but she manages to get pulled back to the temple. Turns out that she was getting helped by Miyako and the others, and fought in some kind of ghost form. I don't know how it works, but it's Akira for fuck's sake. Kei apologizes for being flustered, but Miyako understands. However, says that they don't have time to train. They hear commotion happening. Turns out it's Chiyoko. Kei rushes to Chiyoko and gives her a hug. Let's go! Chiyoko is alive! They talk for a bit on what's going on, and Kei promises to Chiyoko to stay alive. We also see the three psychic users talk to each other about Kei and how they will have to train her since they don't know how much time they got. We then see the American military fight the Empire and trying to find where Akira is. But they find one of the higher-ups, and they start to fire at him. But this doesn't damage him. Instead, one of the men gets their heart squished by the higher up. Tetsuo's assistant looks at a sleeping Akira and wonders where it all went wrong, and he yells that he's not gonna let this end like this. And then turns out Akira is wide awake. Kaori also wakes up as he's the place in shambles, and that Tetsuo is unconscious. This makes her worried for him. The volume ends with Joker's crew led by Kaneda making it to the stadium, and he yells to charge while rushing to the stadium. We start the volume off with a continuation of last volume's end, with Kaneda's crew fighting the Empire, and the Empire is really getting the upper hand in this fight. We then cut to the American military still fighting the higher up, and them hearing the noise outside. Yamada uses the confusion to attack the higher up, shooting him to death. The Empire manages to stop Kaneda, but they find out quickly that he's still alive, and uses the robot to attack them. Meanwhile, Tetsuo is in a lot of pain and tells Kaori to run, but she refuses. However, she changes her mind when she sees Tetsuo's arm come off, and Tetsuo starts to grow a new one. We then see Clonal facing Tetsuo. Tetsuo is happy to see his arm is back, and the Clonal is shooting at Tetsuo. Turns out it's another airstrike similar to the one from Volume 2. We see everyone's reaction, and a member of the Empire suggesting to run away, but Tetsuo's assistant tells everyone not to worry. As long as they have Akira on their side, nothing shall go wrong. We then cut to the military ship's reaction to the soul being activated, and that one of the military men says that he will sink the entire city of Neo Tokyo if he has to. Joker makes it to the field and sees Clonal and Tetsuo, and reacts when he sees Tetsuo. He shoots at Tetsuo. Again, this never works. As Joker flies past him, Tetsuo's flesh form follows Joker and tries to absorb him. Clonal tries to blast another soul beam, but it doesn't work this time. Tetsuo's flesh form is causing chaos in the area and is about to get Joker, but K's spirit form starts to fight the giant flesh baby, and it works for a bit. Kaori makes it to the Empire and tells them that Tetsuo needs help, and tells them where he's at. Tetsuo's assistant suggests killing Tetsuo since they have full loyalty to Akira, but Kaori is against the idea before she runs off to find Tetsuo, but Tetsuo's former assistant shoots her dead. Tetsuo feels Kaori's presence fading away and goes to find her in his regular form. Akira and the Empire finds the American military, and they know who each other is and start to fight each other. The military manages to kill one of the higher-ups of the Empire while they escort Akira away. Tetsuo finds a lifeless Kaori telling Tetsuo in her dying breath that she knew he had come. His former assistant sees Tetsuo and a dead Kaori and tells Tetsuo to fight the American military, but he refuses until his arm is attacked after being shot by a military-grade weapon. His former assistant blurts out that they can all die, referring to the military and Tetsuo, before the ceiling collapses on him and the people who were escorting Akira. Tetsuo turns into the giant baby form, and Yamada is fighting it. While this is happening, and turns out that the weapon Yamada has is a gun with some biochemical that kills Tetsuo's former assistant and some of the higher-ups from the Empire by asphyxiation. Akira avoids the smoke, but the only survivor aside from Yamada in a gas suit is Tetsuo. This shocks Miyako, who says Tetsuo feels well after the gas. Turns out the gas is a drug that accidentally boosted Tetsuo. Tetsuo notes how great he feels before he sees Kaori's corpse, and then gets shot by Yamada, which angers him to the point where he explodes Yamada from the inside out. This shocks the three psychic users since Tetsuo has been able to control his powers, like they were worried for. As Tetsuo checks on Kaori, he sees Akira before they are interrupted by the arrival of Kaneda and Kai. Tetsuo greets the two saying it's been a while, before they start shit-talking each other. Kaneda tells Akira to get to safety. Before Kaneda gets ready to fight Tetsuo, Kai leaves with Akira. Tetsuo starts to wear Yamada's clothes, while the two start to throw shade at each other. Kaneda starts to shoot Tetsuo with a laser gun, which Tetsuo says is effective, but in the end doesn't even scratch Tetsuo in his current form. Kaneda manages to get a clean shot, which actually hurts Tetsuo. They keep fighting. Meanwhile, Kai calls Joker to ask how it's going, before Kai meets up with one of the crew members from Joker's crew. And Kai tells them that they found Tetsuo and that Kaneda is fighting Tetsuo, and then instructs the guy to get Akira to safety and to tell Joker before he goes back to Kaneda with the motorbike. We then cut back to Kaneda versus Tetsuo Tetsuo, where Kaneda is losing hard. Tetsuo is ready to finish Kaneda off, but Kei appears and starts the fight. Miyako telepathically tells Kaneda to get out of there. Tetsuo causes an explosion to happen, which makes Kei fall down, and Tetsuo follows her, and the fight continues. Tetsuo creates another explosion, which makes the ceiling fall. And then Tetsuo asks if she's already done. Tetsuo's powers is so strong that it actually makes all the electronics disabled, and even Akira feels it. We see Ryu reacting to it, alive. And even the military comes and gets ready to nuke Neo Tokyo. They start dropping bombs, which causes chaos in the city. Miyako learns of the attack, and before telling the monks to get Masura and Kyoko to safety before the temple collapses. The stadium also gets bombed, but the Empire doesn't give up. Tetsuo's fight with Kei still goes on before Tetsuo gets distracted by the military bombing the place. He notes that the military is putting on a big show. Kaneda tries to use the chance to shoot Tetsuo, but he notices the wires were cut and Tetsuo gets ready to fight Kei, while his entire body is hurt. Tetsuo closes her in a rock and she yells for Kaneda. And at the same time, Kaneda rushes at Tetsuo and uses the laser gun as a melee weapon and hits him in the head. Kei is saved due to Tetsuo getting knocked out. The military gets ready to activate the soul beam of their own, and at the same time, Tetsuo gets back up to fight Kaneda in a typical street brawl. But their fight is cut short by the light beam, which makes Kaneda attack him even more. Kaneda is mad at Tetsuo and tries to understand what happened to his former best friend, but before they get a chance to hear an answer, the soul beam hits in a line. Kaneda runs away, but the beam gets Tetsuo. Akira appears and feels the beam and is about to go towards it, but Kaneda grabs Akira and runs away from the beam. Joker appears and tells the two to get on. Kaneda hops on with Akira in his arms and barely manages to get away. A hurt Kei is still yelling for Kaneda. The soul beam is hitting everywhere in the city, but then it stopped and one of the people on the ship notes that the machine is leaving orbit, falling to Earth. This is due to Tetsuo teleporting to it. It's heading straight for the ship. The military tries to leave, but the laser still works and the laser starts appearing around the ship. But before they can do much to stop it, the military ship is hit and explodes. The ship goes in chaos, ending with it sinking. Meanwhile, back in the stadium, Kai gets up and yells at Kaneda. We then see Kei waking up and sees Colonel, who tells her about the US military cracking the code for the soul. Kei immediately wonders what happened to Kaneda before we see Kaneda arguing with Joker about saving Kai, since Joker needs to fix the hover platform. Akira sits there and watches the two out of boredom. We then see Tetsuo talking to Kaori's spirit before it leaves forever. This scene was honestly sad. Kaori didn't deserve this fate. Kaneda decides he'll go back in there unarmed and tells Joker to bring Akira to Miyako. But he's tired of Kaneda's shit, but when he tells him off, Akira starts to move and walks away, which gets Kaneda to follow him and asks what is wrong. Joker starts to follow a bit later. We then see Tetsuo moving Kaori's body while Ryu is watching from the shadows. Meanwhile, at the temple, Miyako looks angry while walking to Masura and Kyoko and gives them some pills. She then wonders what became of Kei. We then see Kei with Colonel, and Kei talks to Miyako with Colonel confused on who she's talking with. She learns that Akira is on his way with Kaneda. We then cut to Tetsuo, who is going to Akira's old chamber. Kaneda and Joker keep following Akira until they see someone. Turns out it's Kyoko, who was looking for Kaneda since Kei was worried for him. Kaneda tells her that they were on their way to save her, but Akira keeps going, so Joker joins Kaneda and Joker and following Akira. They eventually make it to the place where Akira was slumbering at first before he was awoken, which Kaneda recognizes. We then cut to the surviving people in the military ship on a lifeboat, and they get away from the destroyed ship. Before we cut back to the temple where Miyako introduces Masura and Kyoko to her special forces, which will protect them. We then cut to Colonel asking if she will go, and her replying with yes. Then we see Kaneda's party entering the facility. Kaneda has a feeling of deja vu before seeing someone, Ryu. They are shocked that Ryu is still alive before Ryu confirms that Tetsuo is underground and brought a girl, which makes Kaneda think it's Kei, but Ryu shuts down the idea since he would know if it's Kei. Meanwhile, Tetsuo is underground and is confronted by Kei. He asks where Kaneda is, and she tells him that he's with Akira on his way. Tetsuo is starting to be in pain again. The party of 5 are going downstairs, and they make it to where the lift is. Kaneda asks Joker if he can fix this lift. Tetsuo starts to laugh and says that Miyako betrayed her, before his arm starts to mutate again, and his entire body starts to deform. Joker manages to fix the control pad, and they start to go down while we see Akira smiling. Tetsuo turns into the giant flesh baby and Akira starts to sing for some reason. Tetsuo wants to get to the temple and get Miyako, but Kei tells her if he wants to get to Miyako, then he has to fight her. And Tetsuo starts to attack. We cut to Kaneda's group where Ryu reflects on his friend's death and says that he isn't worth visiting his grave. We then cut back to Kei's fight where Miyako tells her to bring all her power to one point and escape with it. She fails and runs away. Kaneda's crew notices this and starts to fire at the flesh baby. Akira starts to make some weird noises which confuses everyone. Chiyoko tells Ryu to take Akira and leave out of here. The fight continues and Tetsuo in his flesh baby form sees Kaneda and transforms back, shocking everyone. Tetsuo says to a shocked Akira that he is dying before deforming back into the flesh baby again and absorbs Kaneda. Joker keeps firing at him but to no avail. Miyako tells Kei to find Akira and gets saved by Chiyoko before the building goes down. Kei is worried for Kaneda, but Joker tells her that he has become a monster food before the 3 starts to escape. Ryu and Akira are trying to escape, but Tetsuo appears and gets ready to finish them off. But Akira uses his power and this scares the 3 psychic users. Akira and Tetsuo's powers resonate with each other and is about to cause a chain reaction to happen. But then Ryu shoots Akira. This might be a bad idea since all the psychic users reacted to his powers vanishing in a bad way. Tetsuo decides to go where Miyako is and she tells Masura and Kyoko to meet up with Akira while she and the monks will fight Tetsuo. The ground starts to break beneath them and Miyako starts to ask where Kei is. And then we cut to her with Joker and Kyoko. The 2 are able to escape, but she tells them that she has to stop Tetsuo and leaves the 2. Miyako gets ready to fight Tetsuo, and when he arrives, he wastes no time in attacking. They're getting the upper hand for a while, but Miyako notes that Tetsuo will use his powers for anger and hatred. Kei appears and tries to warn them that Kaneda is inside, but Miyako and her monks keep attacking Tetsuo, and it falls to the ground. Due to the strong power used in the fight, the temple collapses even more. Masura and Kyoko's spirits make it to where Akira is. He can barely speak, but the 2 are glad he's alive. Akira asks how Takashi and the others are doing, and we see Takashi and some of the psychic kids' spirits come down and greet Akira. Masura and Kyoko asks if Akira can use his powers, and he nods. You can also see Ryu being crushed by some metal, so rest in peace, Ryu. Tetsuo is still alive, and bystanders from the temple react to Tetsuo in fear. Miyako starts to yell out for Kei, and she arrives behind her and tells her to give her one final push against Tetsuo. But Miyako and the others' powers are exhausted, so Kei has to do it. She understands and goes to space to point the soul laser at Tetsuo. Meanwhile, Miyako is giving her whole life to hold off Tetsuo and ends up being at the brink of death, but not before giving Kei enough time to shoot the soul laser, but it fails to hit. So Miyako, in her dying breath, yells at Kei to aim the beam at her. She doesn't want to, but she has to, so with one final beam hitting the ground, Miyako directs it towards Tetsuo and destroys the flesh baby, causing a massive explosion, an explosion so big that it causes a bit of Neo Tokyo to be destroyed. We see the reaction from Colonel and Kai before we see Akira with Masura and Kyoko use the light beam to attack the raining flesh. Since he's still alive, Kaneda makes it out of there with a rebuilt flesh baby. I am just confused. We see Kaneda inside what I would assume is Tetsuo's mind when he was younger. Tetsuo crying before it changes to space. We see some figure telling Kaneda about Tetsuo and Akira's power before the divided figure teleports Kaneda off a memory of where the psychic kid's experiment was happening. Kaneda is looking around, seeing Kyoko talking with Kaneda about friendship and how it's all growing up in the lab before Kaneda is brought to a memory between Kaneda and Tetsuo. Kaneda cries over understanding Tetsuo's misunderstood his small talk, and then Kaneda is teleported to the real world in the spirit form, and Kei is right in front of him. We see how the projections of themselves appear in the previous volumes, thanks to this happening, and then Kaneda is back inside Tetsuo's mind and asks if Tetsuo is still here. He gets teleported back and sees Kei, and the two manages to grab each other's hands before another explosion happens. We see a lot of people's reaction to this, and Kai starts to yell out for Kaneda before we cut to Kaneda and Kei still alive on top of the hill. Kaneda asks if they're all gone, probably referring to the psychic users. We see Kaneda and Kei looking into the sun set together. What the fuck did I just read? Oh my god. Even me just reading this scripts of what I saw in the series is just so fucking confusing. Even I couldn't even note anything good explaining this. Oh my fucking god. Anyways, we see the military going on over to the area and helping the refugees with some food and medical supplies, before we see the Empire attack a military car with a rocket, and the car explodes. Kaneda appears with Joker, who flew him over there, and tells the government that they haven't come to fight, but the Empire is here to be the official peacekeepers of the land, and that they will handle the refugees, and tells the military to get out of their land, before we see the flag, which says Great Akira Empire, which shocks the US government. Kaneda tells them that the Japanese government set them, before we see Kai's group steal some of the US government stuff and vandalize their aircraft. Kai drives by Kaneda, and Kaneda thanks him for his doing before they drive off, and Kei appears with Kaneda's bike, and they get on, not before he tells the US government that this is a sovereign nation and not to try to invade them before they leave. And Kaneda tells them that Akira's memory lives on in their heart. Kaneda and Kei drives off, but not before they meet Colonel, who asks them if he thinks he can beat them. Kaneda asks if he wants to join them, but he refuses, and says their goodbyes before leaving. We see some of the people from the ship talk about the legend of Akira never dying, before we see Kaneda and his crew driving off. And we see the ghost of Yamagata, the guy who died from Volume 1, to Tetsuo, and Tetsuo driving with them as they drive off to the giant city together. And that is how Akira the manga ends. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Overall, Akira was a good series. Had some down moments that I wasn't a big fan of. It's not among my top favorites, but it's still a good series overall. I do have memories from it. So yeah, if you watched to the end of the video, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what I want to do for the future of this channel. So I've planned a lot of videos in the future. Let's just say with everything I've planned so far, I could probably make content up until 2025 early, maybe. It could be a bit shorter or more than that, but yeah. So currently I'm gonna finish off Promise Neverland and Mob Psycho, and of course do that 1,000 words or less video for Ippo. And once I'm done with each of them, once I'm done with the Promise Neverland and Mob Psycho, I'll probably start 2 new series for that, and same with Ippo once I finish those kind of reviews. I don't want to reveal what I planned for those yet, but you'll see eventually. I've also hinted in a past video. Oh yeah, also, I'm planning on doing a Akira movie eventually. When? Probably not soon, but if I do have an idea of when I want to do it, then I'll probably do it. So hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys, well, next time. Bye-bye.